right, so we know you've been digging around for info on stimulus checks and any kind of financial aid you might be able to get your hands on this April 2025.
Yeah. And we want to get right to it.
Absolutely. Let's clear the air.
There aren't any like big federal stimulus check programs planned right now for this April.
Okay, but don't go anywhere just yet.
Right.
There's something that you might have missed, and this is a really important one.
Yes, very time sensitive.
April 15th, 2025 is the absolute last day to claim the 2021 Recovery Rebate Credit.
That's right.
And we're talking potentially up to $1,400 per person.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Some people are already getting those payments.
Really?
Yeah, the IRS is sending some of them out automatically, so, definitely something to pay attention to.
Wow.
And, and then on top of that, we've got things happening at the state level in Alaska and Maryland. Plus, the regular Social Security payments are coming up.
Right, right. Well, in this deep dive, what we're going to try to do is help you figure out if you might be eligible for this 2021 credit and what you need to do before that deadline comes and goes, because it's coming up fast.
It is.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What is the 2021 Recovery Rebate Credit?
So this is basically a way to get the full amount of that third economic impact payment, that $1,400 stimulus payment from 2021.
Right.
If you didn't get the full amount back, then you can claim it on your 2021 federal tax return.
Okay.
And the maximum you could get was $1,400 for each eligible person, plus an extra $1,400 for each qualifying dependent you had.
Okay, so who is eligible for this credit back in 2021?
Well, generally, you had to be a U.S. citizen or a resident alien during that year.
Okay.
And you couldn't have been claimed as a dependent on somebody else's tax return.
Right.
Also, you needed to have a valid Social Security number, and that had to be issued before the due date for your 2021 tax return, or you had to be claiming a dependent who had an SSN or an ATI.
Right.
So those are some of the basic requirements.
And I know income was a factor, too.
Yeah, income is super important for this one.
Right.
So to get the full $1,400 as a single individual, your adjusted gross income, or AGI, had to be $75,000 or less back in 2021.
Okay.
And that's your income after you take certain deductions.
Right.
And then above $80,000, the credit phased out completely.
Okay.
Now, for married couples filing jointly, the full credit applied if their combined AGI was $150,000 or less, and it phased out above $160,000.
Got it.
And for heads of household, the full credit applied up to $112,500 AGI, and it phased out above $120,000.
So those income limits from back in 2021, those are really key.
They are. And, it's really interesting to think about how those income limits stack up against the earlier stimulus efforts.
Right.
Because the phase out for this 2021 credit happened a lot faster than it did for the 2020 payments. So some folks who got checks earlier on, they might not be eligible for this particular credit.
That is an important point. So with that April 15th deadline right around the corner, what steps should people take if they think they might be eligible for this credit?
Well, the main thing is you got to file a 2021 federal tax return, and that's either Form 1040 or 1040-R. And you have to do this even if you weren't required to file that year because of low income.
Okay.
You'll find the Recovery Rebate Credit on line 30 of that form.
Okay. And what if someone needs a little help filing those forms?
If your income is $73,000 or less, the IRS has this fantastic tool called IRS Free File.
Okay.
It lets you file electronically, totally free of charge.
That's great.
Also, as we mentioned earlier, the IRS is sending out payments to some folks automatically, even if they filed in 2021, but they didn't claim the credit.
Okay.
So you might get lucky and find a nice surprise in your mailbox, but don't count on it.
Right. So even if you didn't have much or any income in 2021, it could still be worth it to file that return, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a really good idea to double check how much you actually receive from that third economic impact payment. You can find that info on Notice 1444-C or Letter 6475, or you can look it up in your IRS online account. Now, if you didn't get that full $1,400 initially, or maybe your income took a dip in 2021, or you had a new dependent, you might be eligible for the difference now.
Right.
Just keep in mind, this deadline, this is specifically for that third payment.
Right.
The deadlines for the earlier payments from 2020, those have already come and gone.
Okay, let's talk about some of the state-level aid programs you mentioned, Alaska and Maryland.
Yes. So in Alaska, they have those permanent fund dividend payments, and eligible residents who got their applications in by March 31st, they could see those payments rolling in around April 17th and May 15th.
Okay.
And then over in Maryland, specifically in Prince George's County, there's a proposed program to provide some aid to federal employees who have been furloughed.
Right.
Of course, that one's still waiting on approval, but it's something to keep an eye on.
And what about those Social Security payments for April? What can people expect there?
So those are going to follow the usual schedule based on what type of benefit you're getting and your birth date. And those will start going out as early as April 1st with SSI payments.
Okay, so to wrap things up here, the big takeaway for everyone listening is that April 15th deadline for that 2021 Recovery Rebate Credit.
Exactly. You got to mark your calendars on that one. And one more really important reminder, there aren't any big federal stimulus check programs in the works right now for April 2025.
Right.
So, be careful about misinformation out there and always stick to official sources like irs.gov for accurate information.
That's good advice. So think back to 2021. Did you receive the full $1,400 stimulus payment? Did your income change at all that year if you think you might be eligible for this 2021 Recovery Rebate Credit? Make sure you file your 2021 tax return by April 15th, 2025, no matter what.
That's right.
And for our listeners in Alaska, keep an eye out for those PFD payments that could be coming your way.
This all brings up an interesting question. What other past financial aid programs might have had deadlines or opportunities that you might have missed?
Hmm,
It might be worth doing a little digging on your own to see if there's anything out there that you could still benefit from.
that's something to think about for sure. All right, that's going to do it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.